Everybody's heard my housekeeping items. I'm going to go through the agenda, but in a moment, I have the privilege to introduce you to Tim Sullivan, who is our president and CEO and has been here for about 9 years leading us. And this is an especially important part for us, and he's going to explain that why we want to have an event like this that brings you in our doors so that we become partners on the journey of exploring whether you want to bring an EV into your household. It's your choice. We just provide the power, right? And so that's what we want to talk to you a little bit about, how we can do that together. So Tim, I'll turn it over to you to welcome our guests.
Good. Let's thank Martha for the introduction. Thank you, Martha, and welcome one and all. I'm going to ask the question a little differently. Who's been to Wright-Hennepin at all? Who's been in the building before? So conversely, you can put your hands down. First timers. Well, a special welcome to you. That's awesome. So we are delighted to have you here, and some of our best events, actually probably our favorite events of the year, are always when our members come. I do want to acknowledge, at the risk of embarrassing her, Audrey Britton. Audrey, wave just to the folks in the room. Audrey Britton from District 7 of Wright-Hennepin is on our board of directors, so good to have her here. I will be brief. A little bit about Wright-Hennepin. We're a not-for-profit electric cooperative formed 87 years ago during the New Deal. Wright-Hennepin members literally strung the first wire and erected the first poles in our service territory some 87 years ago. And that effort, which often was just a single light bulb hanging in a farm kitchen, has now become a $130 million business and serves 60,000 people. And importantly, delivers the essential value of electricity to you every single day. And of course, the next frontier of that, not so much new anymore, but still a bit of a frontier, is electric vehicles, where we would actually move into the transportation fuel provider. We'd be essentially a lot like the convenience store or the gas station that we're so familiar with. Martha mentioned why it's important to us. Well, obviously, electricity sales are helpful to us. Of course they do. They allow us to spread our fixed costs across a lot more electrons, and that, of course, brings down the average cost of electricity for everyone. But it's especially important for EVs because EVs typically will come in. You'll come home from work, most of you. You'll plug in at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night, and that's right on the peak. That is the time when our power is the most expensive. And so to help you save money and help our other members save money, those non-driving EVs, it's in all of our collective interests to incent you to get off the peak, plug in, but wait to charge for a little later hours. And so we're going to spend some time talking about our energy savings programs that are win-win. You can actually get essentially half-priced electricity, that half-priced, to charge overnight, which helps you, and of course it helps your fellow cooperative members because we're not adding, at least not appreciably, to our peak. So we love it because we like serving our membership. We love it because we become more important in your lives. We love it because you help other members, and we love it because it helps us to manage all of our power costs. So those are all of the reasons that you're with us tonight. So we got a gangbuster program. We have panelists, real EV drivers who can give you the good, the bad, and the other. We're looking forward to hearing from them. A couple of experts over here, including two of our colleagues, both from our Generation Transmission Cooperative and right here at Wright-Hennepin, to answer all your questions. So I'm going to get out of their way and turn it right back to you. Good to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So my name is Martha West. I'm the Vice President of Marketing, Member Services, Communications, Beneficial Electrification, Dishwashing, and whatever else. So my job tonight is to be the Australian cattle dog to make sure that we stay on time and we get where we're needing to go. And so if I start nipping at your heels, if we're getting into something a little long, it's because we've committed to time and we want to keep everybody moving forward. So our agenda, we're going to do a little bit of trivia just to kind of wake everybody up and get everybody acclimated to the conversation that we're going to have. We're going to talk with our distinguished panelists about the process of what I like to say, bringing baby home. I love cars and I love driving. So for me, bringing in a car home is a really wonderful experience. And so what's that really like, from the buying process to getting your home equipped, and then, what's it like to drive it? And then we're going to learn a little bit more about what Tim mentioned, which are our energy saving programs, really win-win, because anybody when you plug an EV in, that can raise your electrical demand at your house by about 30%. So if everybody with an EV plugged in those at about the same time, boy, that's a big hit on the peak. So it's really important for all of us as members to make sure that we are thinking about when we actually activate that charging. Like you said, plugging in, our cars are so sophisticated. I always feel like they're smarter than I am these days, especially. So we can plug them in and then schedule it. Then we're going to have a demo of a really cool new Choose EV tool that we put onto our website within the last month and a half. Raise your hand if you do not yet, or are just considering an EV. You do not own an EV at this time. Just raise your hand. Oh, this is perfect. This is made for you. This is so made for you, because the Choose EV tool allows you to go in and literally compare every make and model that is out on the marketplace right now, and also compare it with your combustion engine vehicle as well. So you can really be informed before you go to the dealership, both in how much it's going to cost to charge and what you're going to save. So I invite you to go and take a look at that. And then we're going to have drawings from James, who's the head of our beneficial electrification. There's James over there. Yep. Yep. And then I want to introduce Rodney Defoe from Great River Energy, and Andy Walker, our energy use consultant, and Steve Nisbet is here too. Where did Steve go? He'll be back. He'll be back. Okay. Super excited about our special guest that will be talking about our programs in that way. I'm not sure, Robin, what you're signaling back there, but we'll get it. The agenda. You want the agenda? We want to know what we're doing? Sorry, I'm so excited to talk to you. I want to get past the agenda. All right. So I covered the housekeeping items, the restrooms, the medical availability. We have people here who can ask questions. Watch for our after-event survey, because if this goes well, you never know, we'll try and do it again, because we want to look at all the folks who don't have them. We want to make sure that we can help you be informed and be your partner in this process. All right, our panelists, so excited. These are members. So members of Wright-Hennepin, just like you, who have actually pulled the trigger and gone forward and purchased an EV. Kelly Lindbergh, raise your hand. Kelly, Bill McMullen, and Brian Hart. Thank you, guys. So Kelly has an Audi e-tron, Bill has the Nissan Leaf, and Brian has the Subaru Solterra. So thank you guys so much for being here. And then I mentioned, Rodney, you also drive the Hyundai, correct? Yes. And then Andy drives the Lightning. Got some special vehicles there. Love it. Yeah, just come on in and go ahead and take a seat. All right, we're going to start with a little bit of trivia here, first of all. An electric vehicle only needs one of the following maintenance jobs done. What is it? Is it an oil change, a belt replacement, new spark plugs, or brake pad inspections? Brake pads, yeah. Especially if you've ever stepped on the gas in an EV. Holy cow. All right, what is the most common EV charger type used when charging at home? A level 1, a level 2, or a direct current fast charger?
Martha, can you show the question? There we go. Thank you.
Level 2.
Level 2.
There we go. Yep. What percentage of EV charging happens at home? Is it 50, 60, 70, or 80%?
80.
Very good. All right. How much of a rebate does Wright-Hennepin offer toward the purchase or installation of a hardwired, that's important, hardwired 240-volt level 2 charger?
$5,000.
Are you an XL customer? 250, 350, 500? Robin? $500. So it's well worth your while to explore. According to the Minnesota PUC, there were 1,759 EVs registered in our territory as of January of 24. What percentage of these participate in an EV savings program from Wright-Hennepin? Is it 25, 35, 45, or 55%?
35.
45%, so we're getting there. we're getting there again. Those programs help you keep rates low for everybody on the electric side, so they're important. Of the EVs in our service territory, which manufacturer is most popular? This is amazing. Tesla, overwhelming. I mean, you're gonna see a chart today through the roof. Most likely because they were right first out of the gate. That makes a big difference. All right, so we're gonna start with the panelists now. How long have you had your vehicle? 12 years. 12 years. How about you?
I guess 4.
4 years or so? 1.5. Okay, you're the newbie. Remember when you first drove it? Do you remember that day when you first got it? And were you prepared for it? Did you feel you were ready?
Well, I did. I had all kinds of time to research because I was waiting for the car for about 2 years.
Oh.
Martha, can they just grab that to make sure the mic is on and pull it closer? There you go. Perfect.
It will be. There we go. Thanks. Keep going, Brian.
Thanks.
You're on.
So I had done lots of homework, but the actual experience of driving it was like, wow, this is fun.
Kelly, similar reaction. Do you remember that day?
Yeah, I mean, it's a blast, you guys. It's so quiet, and the power behind it is incredible. So that's fun.
He's looking at it like, well, I've been there for 12 years, so I've been experiencing this for a dozen years compared to the rest of you.
I don't remember that far back. No, it's a slightly improved experience from driving an internal combustion engine. It's quieter, better pickup. It's just a nicer experience.
What was the biggest surprise for you? I want to start with you, Brian.
The quiet. I had really just kind of become accustomed to cabin noise, and it's like significantly quieter in my EV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it was when you reverse, because there is no sound to the car, they add sound to the car, right? So that if there's somebody walking behind you, you don't run over them. And so each car kind of has its own sound. Mine kind of sounds like Buck Rogers, and it's kind of fun.
This will be like music to your ears, but we didn't notice any change in our electric bill after getting the car.
Wow.
I mean, it obviously must have gone up a little bit, but not much.
That's phenomenal.
Yep.
That is phenomenal.
Didn't even notice it.
Where do you charge most of the time? At home?
Oh, 100% home.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Did you tell your neighbor you plugged into their house? Talk a little bit about what may have been the hardest to get used to. We have obviously some electric vehicles here, and I have driven one of ours a couple of times, and for me, it was that whole, in the Tesla, when you take your foot off the gas and it starts to pull down as it charges itself. Your vehicles have something similar, or what was really difficult?
For me, it was just remembering to plug in at night, because it's just a habit you have to get in, and sometimes I would wake up in the morning and go, well, that's a bummer. I didn't plug in last night. I'm sure there are better features on the apps now that remind you and that, hey, your car is sitting here at your house and it's not plugged in. Are you sure you want that to be the case? Mine, being the age that it is, does not have that. But that was hard for me to get used to. And still hard when my husband, who does not normally drive the car, I actually got into it this morning. I was like,
I want to hear the story. I walked in a little bit on this story. Can you elaborate and share your husband's?
are you talking?
The forgetting.
Oh, the forgetting to plug in. Okay, so my husband, I'm looking at Brad Spencer over there, who knows him. We are neighbors, but my husband, he said, "Oh, I'm going to borrow your car." And so I said, okay, well, that's fine. You can use my car for work. So he drove downtown Minneapolis. He was there all day, parked in his parking ramp right next to a charger, but didn't charge. And then he had to go to a city council meeting up in Lexington, and then he had to come all the way home. Well, it's dark. It's one of the coldest nights of that year, that winter. And it's about midnight, and he hadn't come home yet. And I woke up, and I thought, well, that's strange. That's a long city council meeting. Well, sure enough, I call him, and he says, well, I'm at the Maple Grove Transit Station. I'm sleeping on the floor. And I said, what's going on? He said, well, I realized I actually didn't have enough because, in fact, you didn't charge last night. I didn't look because I'm not really used to looking at, every day, my gas gauge. And I didn't even think about it, and I could have charged all day and I didn't. And now I'm driving around looking for a dang charger. And so that was his moment, because you have to be thoughtful about in the winter, right? Your battery goes down at a higher clip, because it's a battery. And so it's not like you get the same range that you do in the summertime, and he wasn't used to that. So he definitely learned his lesson.
Yeah. Bill or Brian, any similar experiences or things that you needed to?
There's a concept called range anxiety that,
It's real.
Is it a real thing? It's a real thing?
and what you learn to do is just like an airplane pilot learns to keep an eye on fuel and know that running out of fuel is a bad thing. You just program it so that you don't run out of fuel. In 12 years, we have never run out of juice. Come pretty close. One time we tried to do it, and there's a function called turtle that on the Nissan, when you get down to almost nothing, it goes into turtle mode, which means you crawl so you can get to the side of the road. We've never had that happen. We tried, and we just couldn't get it. When it got down to where it said 0, it just kept going. So it's kind of like gas gauges are. Sometimes when you're on showing empty, it's not really empty, but you don't want to find out.
Yeah.
But I think that range anxiety is what we need to come, just realize, okay, that's the range. The cars have gotten much better at telling you what that range is, because in the early days, it was called a guessometer. And it really was a bit of a flawed system in Nissan. We've got a Chevy Bolt now. We have 2 electric cars.
Okay.
And the Bolt, the range is spot on. Very good.
For me, same, getting into a new habit of remembering to plug in the car at night.
Did you put Post-it notes on the door or set a reminder on your phone or anything?
I am a big Post-it guy, yes. But now it's automatic, I don't even think about it. But just when I first got the car, it's like, oh yeah, I have to do that.
How long did it take to get past as you drive past the gas station, you look down at the gauge?
I'm so happy not to go to the gas station anymore. I don't even feel, that was one of the reasons why I got an electric car, was I don't like to go to the gas station. I don't like to go and get my car maintained. And, I care about the environment. So for me, that was one of the key reasons. So I feel like the moment I got it, I was sailing on by that gas station.
Sayonara. Rodney, you're seeing a lot of technological advances too in that charging and range. What is GRE seeing coming down the pike with what they're hoping to achieve?
I gotta say, one of the first things that comes to mind is just the range of the vehicles themselves, battery technology. It's improved just by small bits. It's not like we're at solid state batteries or anything like that yet. But it's improved to the point where they can do better thermal management of batteries that helps with both charging the battery in the cold. And then when you start with a larger range, you think about how you typically use a vehicle, and I'm going to guess that 90% of everyone in this room probably drives, 40 to 60 miles commute, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But most electric vehicles, I think the average now is over 200 miles of range, if not 250 or 300. You really don't need to worry about running out on your daily commute. The only time you're really going to run into that is if you're going to grandma's house or if you're taking a trip across the country. So in my experience, I've owned an EV for 5 years, and I've charged away from my home at a DC fast charger definitely less than my fingers and my toes, but between 10 and 20 times in 5 years. I think that's something that resonates with people.
And related to that, so we did have some questions come in from folks, and one of the ones that was really good was asking about where we live and the weather, and what really is the impact of the cold on the battery and its ability to hold and charge, and then what's the realistic aspect of charging if someone wants to just try and do level 1 in the wintertime. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, charging rates can be affected by cold weather, and then also, of course, you are going to lose some of your range, primarily because you're running an electric heater, electric resistance heater in most EVs, to heat your cabin, and that can be a big draw. of the energy that's related to your battery. And then the battery, when it's cold, it just doesn't have the same properties as the battery when it's warmer. So it's typical for EV batteries to lose somewhere between, say, 20% and 40% during like the coldest winter days. There's some resources out there that actually break it down by model, which have been pretty insightful to people trying to find out what's the best value or which EV really does a good job in the cold weather. One thing that's also come to the market recently is heat pumps for heating inside of your car. You've probably heard about that for heating your house, but now they are building heat pumps into the cars. And with that, it helps with the consumption due to the electric heat in the cabin when you're using the vehicle on the road. So it's another aspect. Did I capture everything?
Absolutely, but I also want to talk to you about, as somebody who's driving an EV now too, what were some of the reflections that you have on driving it and getting used to it, and what surprised you when you made that transition?
Yeah, I guess what really surprised me was just how do I make sure the darn thing's off when I'm sitting in the parking lot versus on? Because it's funny. It's kind of like you have the accessory on in your regular car, and you got to press the button a few times to make sure you have it off. And it was trickier than what I assumed with the vehicle model I have, because it's silent. It's silent until you get out of the door, and it's still on, and it starts beeping at you because you're walking away with the door closed and you're not in it anymore, and the key's not in it. So that was interesting to me, and certainly a learning experience.
Yeah, and as far as the silence too, how many times did you actually kind of go, is it actually on? Is it really going to
How
go?
many times has it just been left running for a good amount of time?
Okay.
Yeah. By either, I mean, we had an instance just a couple of weeks ago where it was left running out in the street. Whoops. I was like, did you realize that that was still on? No, it wasn't. Yeah, radio's on, car's on. Car's on out there.
Love it. Andy, any reflections from you on getting used to it?
Kind of what was already touched on. Biggest thing is probably that braking, that regenerative braking is probably the biggest thing to get used to.
Does pretty much every model have that? Is that pretty standard?
Yes, that's
Okay.
And so you get away from using that brake to slow yourself down, especially at creeps, and you just let off the gas and it's going to start doing that for you. So getting used to that was a big thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Does everybody understand what he's talking about? Oh, so normally when you let off the gas in your vehicle, you're going to coast. So if you picture those old little cars that we had when we were little, and you'd take them backwards so that they would they would tighten up and then they'd shoot off. These cars don't necessarily, well, they do shoot off, but these slow down. It's regenerative braking, so they literally are gathering energy and charging themselves as they are slowing down. So when you take your foot off the gas, you don't coast. The car is going to slow, just as if you were pressing the gas,
It's
the brake.
very similar to a manual transmission
Yes,
feeling.
you're
Like
downshifting.
if you were in second gear and you would just kind of slow down naturally.
Excellent analogy. Anybody else have any other better analogies than that? But I think that's exactly right.
yeah, that and just that torque that was touched on. You know, electric motors are going to make instantaneous torque and maintain it through low RPMs compared to a gasoline engine that needs that higher RPM and works up to it. So you get used to getting all that torque right off the bat.
Any fun stories with that? Anybody want to share anything like that? Because it's really different. Unless you're driving like a Z06 or something, it's really different.
I have occasionally, when I pull up to a four-way or a four-lane highway with a car, maybe it'd be a Corvette or something next to me. And I'll just
And you're in the Bolt.
Isn't it the best?
And you're in the Bolt. You're in the Chevy Volt. Chevy
And
Bolt
you just
against the.
Yep.
And you smoke them.
yeah,
Okay,
so that's kind of fun.
that is fun. You have done that a few times too.
Well, I haven't done that, but I feel more confident and safe when I'm in merging and those kinds of situations, because every once in a while you don't have control of that other driver who does something that maybe wasn't all that well thought out, and suddenly you need to move fast, and I can move fast.
Yeah.
I will say though that when your primary vehicle is an electric vehicle, and then maybe you use the other gas vehicle, you have to remember the fact that you don't have that same kind of takeoff. And so maybe some of those moves that you might otherwise make, you have to restrain yourself because there's no way you're going to make it happen.
Got it. One of the things we heard from a lot of people is that once they purchased the vehicle, the process of bringing home baby was something that wasn't really discussed in great detail. And it's really important for us as your electric provider to make sure that that connection is number one, safe. Absolutely safe. So we wanted to talk to these folks and Rodney and Andy about what it's like to bring it home, to get your home ready for that process. Do you remember that and what you needed to do?
In my case, I charge in the garage, and my garage electric panel did not have capacity for the charging station, so I had an electrician run another line from the main panel to the garage, and then once I got the car and the charging station, I had that installed, but it was really relatively simple, and it really wasn't all that expensive. I looked it up as I was preparing to come tonight, and total cost with my charging station, mine's an NL juice box 40 amp. It was just under $1,500 for the whole process.
That's great. And we have a rebate.
And I got $500 rebate, so I
Yep.
was out $1,000.
Anything in particular you needed to do at your house, Kelly?
I mean, we had to do the same thing, but it's very, very simple. I mean, I think I did most of this just myself. Called Wright-Hennepin. What do I need to do? Great. Here's the flyers that you need. Give this to your electrician. He's like, yep. I'll go do that. Once it's done, you guys came out, put the box up on the wall, done. I mean, it was not a big deal at all.
Yeah. And do you want to talk a little bit more about it from our end and what people are going to see and what the process is like for them? Because it's pretty painless.
Yeah, certainly. I see some familiar faces in the room. I cover the east side of our territory, so if you do buy an EV and you live on the east side, good chance I'll be the one to do the checkout for the rebates. So you'll be seeing me again. But as was touched on, step one is always figuring out your ampacity. So figure out what your panel can actually handle. So if you have a 100 amp panel, going out and buying a Ford Lightning that takes an 80 amp charger probably isn't going to be the most ideal situation. So the biggest thing is information gather on the front end and future-proof yourself. And I like to stress that with people, future-proof your installation, kind of that buy once, cry once.
We're giving you two.
Just kidding.
Oh,
Andy gets
thank you
his
very
own.
much. There we go.
I like that. I've never heard that before. Buy once, cry once.
Yeah, so part of that future-proofing is kind of going through the steps of what am I going to want, what's the future going to hold, am I going to want a second EV? And if I do put those things in place with the first installation, cost of materials, cost of labor aren't going to go down. So the more that you can absorb on that front end is going to be better. So panel capacity, both from the standpoint of ampacity, but also physical room. Do you have room for that double pole breaker? Are you going to have to get another panel put in, anything of that nature? We do have members that have run a dedicated service just for their EV charging. That is an option.
Like a sub panel?
So a general service, but just for their EVs. So they have a
Okay.
second service to their homes.
Nice.
So there always is a workaround if you don't have something that right off the bat might meet your needs. And then second would be program compliance. If you're going to take advantage of the programs and the rebates offered by Wright-Hennepin, making sure that you're compliant with those programs with your charger. So I think we have a picture of a non-compliant charger.
We do.
Yeah, so we require it to be a level 2 charger and that it be hardwired in. Reason being is so that we know it's just the charger registering on that meter.
This one is the non-compliant, correct?
From manufacturers, yep, you're starting to see these. They are level 2 chargers, so there can be some confusion with that because they are capable of hitting 50 amps at 240 volts. But they would not qualify for our programs because they are plug-in style. It does have to be hardwired. So making sure that we're compliant on what we're putting in so I don't show up and give you bad news. I never like doing that. And then multiple EVs. If you are planning on getting more than one EV, plan for it now on the first installation. And they'll help dictate what equipment you're going to want to put in your home. And it'll also dictate some of those costs from your installer. So we have
I'll do a little show and tell there.
yeah, we have some examples here. Like this is the meter socket. Any of the programs you go on, you'll have to have this meter socket installed on your home. It'll have the meter for your particular program
Do we install that, or does their electrician put that on?
Electrician will do the socket, and then during the checkout, we will install that meter to
Okay.
finalize it.
Okay,
Yep. And so next to it here is something people probably are not as familiar with, and that is a CT cabinet.
yeah, and what does CT stand for? Something
Current
fancy?
transformer.
Okay,
And so where these come into play, I really like them for multiple EV setups, because what happens is those line voltage wires are going to come through this donut CT here. You can add and take circuits out as needed. So it gives you a lot more flexibility on what you can do in the future. Also, if you have a long run to make from your panel to the socket, this makes more sense because you just have two 12-gauge wires going to your socket, and you can make a shorter run with those much more expensive, heavier gauge wires that are carrying that line voltage to your charger.
Yeah.
So this would go right next to your panel. Panel would feed through it and to your charger, and then two lead wires out to your socket. Whereas with a direct meter, you'd have from the panel the line voltage out to the socket and back in.
any questions about these? Sir?
Do you need both those, or one or the other?
If you are doing a CT metering setup, it would be both of these. You're going to need the socket no matter what, but we can configure them to run off a CT or to be direct metered with the line voltage passing through it.
What's different from that meter than the meter that?
From your general service meter? Only difference is going to be the EV program that you're on. These are going to be pre-programmed with that information. So say you do a time of use program, it knows to put everything into those 3 time buckets. So, yeah.
What if you're already on your air conditioning program? You have meters?
Yep, it will be separate from that. We need to meter it by itself.
Yep, and we are blessed that we have a very expert person on all of our energy saving programs. She's going to be talking again in just a little bit too, so she'll be able to talk about how those programs all work together. Because you can do all of them, one of them, two of them, whatever you choose to do. Okay, got it. All right. What do you wish you would have known when you brought these vehicles home? What do you wish you would have known about your EVs before you started driving them?
I wish I would have known that, and it's completely logical, you just don't think about it, but a battery, what they will typically recommend, even for your iPhone, if you actually, go read your instructions for your smartphone, it'll say, hey, guess what? Don't always charge it to 100%. You'll extend the battery life if you charge to 80%. Well, okay, so now if I look at the total range the car said it could have, and then I go, well, I should only charge at 80%. Okay, and now it's winter. Well, now what am I left with, right? And so you just want to kind of do the math. So I typically charge to a higher percentage in the winter and a lower percentage in the summer, just knowing that, I don't know, it's probably doesn't even make sense scientifically, but in my mind, I think it's evening out.
What do you think, Bill?
I think just, I hadn't appreciated range and range anxiety. And I was an early adopter, and the Nissan Leaf, the 2012 Leaf, only had a range of 100 miles, which in the winter is about 80 miles. Now, those are not on the market, so you don't have to worry about that. And I think almost all cars are above 200 miles range, and it's really 200 miles. So that was probably the hardest part getting used to, but you just adapt.
Yeah. Brian?
Well, I had kind of a reverse adoption curve because I got my car in February. And so I was astounded how much farther I could go once spring came.
Road trip, here I come.
Yeah.
Can you ballpark for us the drop-off in the wintertime?
Well,
Because of course you're going to run your heater.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. And in my case, it is depending on the temperature outside. So when we get 20 below and 30 below, I'm close to losing about 40% of range. It's more typically 20 to 30% of range. But like when it's just crazy cold, it's a good 40%.
Yeah. So it's kind of just some basic battery common sense. You know that's going to happen. Some of them just don't function that well.
Yeah, and you need to plan for that. I mean, that's the big thing. If you're buying an EV and you typically need 100 miles on a day, you should at least buy an EV with 200 miles worth of range. And most models, I'm going to say nowadays, are 250 to 300 miles worth of range. If not, some are pushing now. I think there's a Silverado out there in the showroom. I think that's 440 miles worth of range in one fill-up. Was there a question?
Well, I was wondering if, just having the car in a parking lot on a really cold day, if it discharges during that time.
There are some things that can put a little bit of draw on the battery with some models that are doing like thermal management of the battery. Usually it's pretty negligible when it's parked like that. And typically, you know, if you're at home, typically it's plugged in. If you're away from home, you know, I can see that playing in. However, I've never heard of anybody really saying that impacted the way they were using the vehicle.
But if you have a manufacturer in mind, when you go back to the showcase, I would encourage you to ask them about that. That's a great question. How about other tips in dealing with, depending on the weather, or running errands
Well,
and
yeah, I'd like
fast
to
charging?
add, you know, when it does get 20 below, which it does occasionally, ideally you have your car in a garage, and that's going to temper it. The temperature won't be quite as radical. If you have a semi-heated or heated garage, you're made in the shade because it won't really affect you at all. If you're coming from a heated garage, your range will be barely impacted by cold weather because you're charging it when the battery's warm and you're leaving in the morning or whenever you leave, the battery's warm and it's got its capacity. It's when you park it outside or if you try to leave it outside and charge it, that's where you run into the drop-off.
Okay.
Range.
So I feel like I see it because my garage at home is heated and work is pretty heated. And I feel like I actually do see it change, like, oh, watch it go down now as it realizes it's cold out.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of doing the logic test of, hey, it's really cold outside, so guess what? We're going to recalculate your range for you so that you don't think you have what you had when it was parked in that toasty garage.
Yeah, that's a super important point. Yep. And what are you seeing as far as the industry and where that range is going, and, you know, talking about charging out and about and the fast chargers, because you hear a lot about, well, the chargers aren't working or there aren't enough of them. What are you
Yeah,
seeing?
the amount of infrastructure that's being put into the United States right now is pretty phenomenal. There's also a big shift with the vehicles and the charging standard that they're using on all the models. In 2025, you'll start to see the 2025 model year products all are moving over to the Tesla connector, which you guys can look at that probably out in the garage today. It's called NAICS. It's North America Connecting Standard. The C could be something else, but it stands for connector. Anyways, but it's really going to help simplify how people use chargers as opposed to the two different options that were out there previous to this, where you had CCS, which is combined charging standard, and then you had NAICS, which was the Tesla, which of course the Teslas are about 50% of the market overall in the United States. So that opens up a lot of infrastructure that was specific to the Tesla vehicles across the United States, which is fairly robust and fairly well maintained, which is really nice if you're taking an EV on a long road trip.
Yeah, question in the back, I think.
Just so that they can hear.
So is there going to be, wow, are there going to be a market for adapters for the other kind of charger so they can adapt to a Tesla?
Yeah, a lot of the vehicles that came out this last year, like the Ford F-150 Lightnings and several other manufacturers, had the adapter was actually sent with the vehicle. But there are products out there, and then there also are backwards compatible adapters to move a NAICS connector to a CCS. So you can plug it into a vehicle that has CCS, which is the rest of the vehicles outside of Tesla that were built before 2024. So we are going to live in a world of adapters for the vehicles that are out on the road currently, but moving forward, when you buy an EV off the lot, everything's going to come with NAICS. There's not one major auto manufacturer that didn't jump on board with that now.
So you mentioned that there is a plan for a lot of infrastructure, a plan, but what's the situation right now? If you're doing 80% of your charging at home, but you do need to go out on the road, you do need to go somewhere for Thanksgiving perhaps. What kind of planning are you doing? What are you experiencing when you go to some of the chargers? And also, what are the resources you're using that you have found were your best bet to find a charger that's actually going to function? I know it's like multiple questions, but how about, what are you actually seeing when you go to charge somewhere else?
Well, for starters, it happens almost never. I charge at home, like well over 95% of the time. The car itself will tell me where there's a charger on the screen, and then I use if I am going to make a road trip, I just look at a map the day before. So it's like, well, where are there fast chargers, and I can look at them online and see, are they running? Are they?
What is your source?
I use several. So I use ChargePoint. I use EVgo because I got an EVgo credit with my car. I use a better route planner, which kind of tries to consolidate information from a whole bunch of sources. And what's the other one? PlugShare. And then I think both Google Maps and Apple Maps now have all the EV charging stations available on them too. So it's not very difficult to figure out where they are.
Kelly, what's been your urban experience charging beyond your
I was
husband's
able
skill set?
to go electric, and it was attractive to me because I don't road trip. It's not my thing, and I have a limited range that I really need to, and find myself driving on a regular basis. So I've charged twice somewhere else, and it was at work because I had forgotten to charge or something. So I've literally never charged in a public setting outside of a couple times at my work. I do know that if I had to do it, I go, okay, I could figure that out. You know, I know, like, I think my car also tells me, right, here's where they are. And the app on my phone that's tied to my car will, you just go find a charger and it would pop right up, ask for directions, and you'd go figure it out. So it's not a difficult thing. If you're kind of comfortable with your phone, you'll be able to find a charger in a hot second.
Have you seen it evolve a lot in your 12 years?
It's become a lot more plentiful. I use ChargePoint, and then they give you a little credit card or whatever, so you can just tap it, and then it'll turn it on for you. And Lunds and Byerly's have them. The Twins, the ABC garages there at the Twins Target Field has them. And I've never had a problem with them not working.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Sometimes there won't be a space because now there are so many. Because when we started out, there were none. So I always had a space, but now sometimes there'll be a car there charging. So
Okay.
that's the only thing.
Got it. Other resources that you recommend that they, whether it's before they buy or after they buy, that they take a look at from your perspective?
Yeah, I'll reemphasize PlugShare. It's been the go-to for everyone with an EV for a long time. If you do purchase a Tesla or some vehicles, they'll actually have it plotted out right inside the car's navigation system, which can be really nice. Some of them even plan your route for you, which can be a big advantage if you are going to use an EV for long road trips. One thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned a little bit earlier was the vehicles themselves and how they charge. I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago, it was a 50 kW charger that a lot of people were using, and it would take an hour to charge. There's vehicles out there that we have in the garage today that charge at about 350 kW, and that might not mean a lot to you people out there, but basically that's something a large retail store would consume. So you're dumping that into a car, and you can get 200 miles of range within, say, 20 minutes now, and that's significant if you're going to be going somewhere. The big thing you have to plan for, to your point, is making sure the chargers that are capable of that exist on the route you're taking. And so you have to look at those major interstates and plan out a route via, say, PlugShare, if you're going to take the vehicle long distance. But short distance, daily commute, I mean, it is so much more convenient than what people give it credit for, just in casual conversation. Imagine not having to stop at the gas station at 6 o'clock in the morning when it's snowing out to get gas, because your vehicle is already fueled in your garage before you even open the garage door to leave for work.
Yeah.
You could do that every day.
Yep. And if you're interested, we have a blog on our website, which is whe.org. We had a couple of our employees who were not EV drivers whatsoever actually take it on a road trip to Appleton, Wisconsin, to go and meet with a vendor. And so the ladies talked about what it was like for them to get used to driving it, to figuring out where their fueling stops were, because they're going all the way over to the east side. So it's a good journey to read and acclimate with. So Robin's going to talk at about 6:25 about those energy saving programs. So we've got about 8 minutes. So I want to know, what questions do you have for Rodney and Andy and for our panelists here? I know you've got them. Yes.
We hear all the positives. What is the negative that you kind of have found? Is there a negative to this? I mean, I don't want to.
The negative of ownership or the purchase?
Ownership or dealing with it, maintaining or wear and tear. Any negatives that you would, as owners, that you would say, this is a negative for it, or is it all positive? Because it's been all positive so far.
I would say from a negative perspective, and it was, I mean, you won't experience this negative because it's much more pervasively known now. Some of the things that we talked about, hey, you really should only charge at 80%. Hey, you're going to see this drop in range come winter. So if you know those things going in, it doesn't feel like a negative because you already had the information. What I will say is now, as I consider, gosh, battery technology is changing, now I have sort of envy, right? Of, well, I want a car that goes 400. I don't even need it. I've never even charged anywhere. But now I want one that could go 450. So there's that, right? And then I think, well, shoot, who's going to buy my car now that only goes, 225? Should I dump it tomorrow? I don't know. Should I put a for sale sign before you guys get back there? Maybe.
My tires wore out faster than I thought.
Okay. Because you were peeling out.
I think the car is heavier.
Corvettes.
Right.
And I tended to take corners probably a little bit faster. So that I noticed it. And, after, I think it was 30,000 miles, 25,000 miles, I need new tires. Whoa. That was really the only negative.
I'll add one thing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If I wasn't a two-car family, it'd be a lot tougher to adopt an EV because of the range that the EV gets and just the infrastructure that existed when I purchased that vehicle. I mean, those times are changing, and they're changing quite quickly, as I was mentioning earlier. But that is something I guess I would assume a negative that I could mention. And at the same time, if you know your application for the vehicle, I'm just going to say straight up, there's really no negative to buying an EV. If you're using it to cruise around the metro and you're coming back and you can stay within that range, I mean, it's almost the same thing as golf courses with electric carts versus gas carts. They all get back to home.
Let's talk about that though, because pickup trucks, people are going to use them to tow things, and towing a trailer has a big implication on your capacity. I know that our senior operations director had that experience towing a bunch of stuff up to Brainerd, and he was concerned. And that's only like 105 miles, and he was worried because he just watched it going as he went up there. Talk about that.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Like I said, application is everything. Of course, EVs now come in the form factor of a truck. It does not mean that they're equivalent of a truck, especially if you're using that truck to tow your boat up to International Falls to put it in the water up there. Or if you are going to be using it for long distance travel, just like the light duty EVs. So you really have to know your application for that. And I don't encourage everybody to say, hey, look, I can convert it from my standard F-150 to a Ford Lightning F-150. Again, if you're staying inside of a certain diameter from your home or a radius from your home, you're going to be just fine. But the towing can drain down the battery from like a 300-mile range vehicle to only get 100 miles. And then I'll tell you what, you're not probably going to find a charging station where you don't have to take your trailer off to go use it. And that's problematic right now for the industry and for using those vehicles long distance. The good news is there's some long-range hybrid vehicles that are just around the corner that will come in the form of a truck, which will allow you to use both gas and electric. That should be a significant benefit to a lot of people in the way they want to use vehicles like this, where you can mix and match as you need it.
What other questions do you have? Yes.
Did you consider a hybrid as well as a full electric? And if so,
Consider
why
a hybrid.
one way?
We didn't consider it. We just, we knew our radius and new all-electric would work.
Same for me, and I only have the one car, it's electric or nothing, but my driving patterns, the hybrids that I remember, I don't know what the current state is, I haven't researched them, their electric range was next to nothing, and it was like, I don't know why you're even bothering, but, so
Yeah.
it wasn't a consideration.
I looked at the hybrids, and at the end of the day, the range for the electric piece was minuscule. And then I thought, well, great. So now I also have to keep up still with oil changes and all these other things. Forget it. I don't get the benefit. So I'll go straight up electric.
I understand that it can be expensive for some dealerships to retool for electric cars and that some may be reluctant to do that. Is it hard to find a place to get your car serviced when you do need servicing?
Nissan, for our first one, there was no issue. For the Chevy Bolt, no issue, and I'm in a little town, Delano, and no problem. And the irony of it is really don't go in for service very often. I know you think we're all just kind of in la-la land, but you really don't. It's there's really not much maintenance.
I actually want to add something to that. I drive a Nissan Ariya just outside, and speaking of Nissan, 3 years, 36,000 miles. 3 years, 36,000 miles. You get included maintenance free from Nissan for the Ariya line of electric vehicles.
So I encourage you to speak with the dealers in the back about those specific manufacturers if you're interested. I want to also, anybody in here who has an EV already actually using it for hauling or towing? So you do and you do. So I just want to point them out if you are someone who's considering an electric vehicle who might need that function, to talk more about it with those folks if you're comfortable with me volunteering you for that.
Sure.
For crowdsourcing. I think it's great. Yes, sir.
My question is more for the plans for the infrastructure because clearly.
Can you speak up some?
Yep.
My question, I have actually two questions, and it's more for the plans for the infrastructures. You spoke earlier about, basically making it a convenience store, pretty much. And so far, as I can tell, everyone in here is pretty much homeowners, so I can see you guys haven't really touched base on, the people that doesn't own homes. So my question is, basically, what are like the actual plans? Like when do you guys plan on having these? I want to say charging stations, or charging marts, or whatever you want to call them. And how fast how fast are you guys planning to get it done? And then not only that, you are an energy company, right? What's making you guys now want to push forward with doing it when, you had your car for 12 years, and like I'm pretty sure there's other people that doesn't own homes or whatever, and when they came out, like me, I'm planning on buying the actual.
I'm going to answer your latter question first, because that's going to be scalability.
Okay.
And then the other question, I was just at a presentation at Great River Energy, the one they're talking about infrastructure build out and incentives for developments and apartment developers to try and put in these sorts of charging stations or in areas where there's more multifamily housing. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if those are Great River programs, but your question is well founded in the fact that if you are living in a multifamily building or you're renting a home, it is more difficult to get access at home to charging, which makes it more difficult to adopt an EV. It's really a tough nut to crack for utilities, because not only the utilities that have to do something, but also the ownership of whatever residence or multifamily building.
But it's not more.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for cutting you off. I'm sorry. It's not more for like. I'm not just speaking like for apartments or anything, because another thing, like, it has to be convenient for the drivers. No one want to drive like. Yeah, like she's a person that don't really drive everywhere or whatever, probably like to fly a lot, which is understandable. But I'm a person that like to drive. I'm younger. We like new things, and we're going to drive. And even though we're going to be forgetful, she probably a mom, and if she let her kids drive, they forget. She probably, hey, like, come on now.
I have a teenager.
So,
Oh my God, the
yeah.
mileage
So,
she puts
and
on.
then,
So how fast is it? So eventually, how fast are they going to be
yes,
putting it in more places?
that, but where do you plan to locate them? Like, not only just in like, residential areas, highway areas and everything, and like, yeah, just the convenient part
Yeah.
of it, because that's really the thing for the range
It's not as
anxiety.
much us, it is private investment. Like Walmart's made some significant statements towards building out EV infrastructure in their parking lots. We saw just recently in Maple Grove, there's some new chargers in a McDonald's parking lot. And so there's a lot of companies, Taco Bell in California is putting chargers in.
Right.
Starbucks is doing the same thing in the Pacific Northwest. And they're
Hy-Vee's
all
got 'em
kind of
here.
dipping their toe in the water to see how this really works for their business and if it's an amenity that draws in that business. And I think we'll see a lot more of that. There's also the federal government and their NEVI program that's trying to build out an infrastructure across the United States
Right.
along the
I know
highways.
about the Navy.
Does that better?
But my thing is not. I'm not even talking so much with Walmart or anything like this. Like, or because like if I'm driving, 9 times out of 10, I'm not trying to go too far off this highway to go all the way to Walmart. Because a lot of Walmarts, yes, they're by highways, but a lot of Walmarts are in inner cities as well. Um, someone from I'm from Appleton. I know pretty much. I know the growing cities and the EV rates of Wisconsin, which is Lake Geneva, Madison, Appleton, Green Bay, and Milwaukee. Like I'm going to school to be an EV technician, so I'm like
Yeah.
getting deep into it.
There's a whole bunch of people in here who
That's
are going to want your
So
number.
yeah, and I plan on. Well, I already have a lot intact. I was gonna talk to you more later about it, but I just wanted to know that. And the last thing was the
It's okay. He's going to be here. He's going to be in the at the showcase too.
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to worry about it.
Certainly though, like on that point that you were touching on, it has to make sense dollar and cents wise. So now we're seeing in these newer apartment buildings going in, these newer businesses, they are seeing it as a competitive edge. So if you look at apartments that were built within the last 5 years or so, all of them are gonna have EV stalls in them. Same with businesses
And
that
the
are going
thing
in.
is, I understand that because not only that, I'm a certified carpenter as well, so I know anything about a house. Like I can build a house from the ground up, so I understand electrical somewhat. But what I'm saying is like right now, like the grid, like that's a lot of power. So like, how is you guys like, if you guys gonna help like Walmarts and all them, how are you gonna provide that energy for them so it don't cause outages? And
Oh.
the other thing, I understand the microgrids. Like you can have microgrids, but that get expensive. So I want, and then not just like he said, he charged with EVgo, ChargePoint. Those are companies. I'm not bashing them or anything, but I've done my research. Those are a lot of charging companies who have industrial chargers, whatever, but have a lot of difficulties with charging the cars. And then, like he said before, with the Tesla adapters and stuff like that.
Yep.
Like I know a lot, but I'm just saying like, um, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I'm going to be Australian catalog because I got to keep us on time. I think there's another question as well, Kurt, or no? Sir. Yep. So Kurt's our engineer, and he's going to talk to you about that as well.
That's the question. What chargers do you guys plan to use? If you plan on,
It's the marketplace, though. It's a private industry, so it's going to be supply and demand. It's going to be based on the price and supply chain and stuff. So
you guys want to go off the,
yeah, we don't provide a charger.
oh, I was gonna say, would you guys go off the efficiency of the chargers that run? Because that
Yeah.
would make more sense.
Yep, and that'll be your choice as the consumer. Got two more right here.
I'm interested in about the downsides of having to charge outside we don't have a garage, but is there the cords that lead out from the
We
house?
do have some members that are currently set up in that that kind of situation where they are charging on the exterior of the home. And so some of that charging power is going to go towards maintaining the battery, keeping temperature levels. So you're going to have a little more energy use, but it's going to offset from you would have been heating a garage or something of that nature. So, oh yeah, and certainly the cords are long enough to reach, so it would be mounted. The charger could still be mounted, yeah, on an interior location.
Sir.
Ran out.
It's on.
Okay, I live in Otsego, Minnesota, and I know in the last year they've built 10 to 20 new charging stations in the Rogers Otsego area. McDonald's in Rogers just opened up like 5 or 6 of them there.
Yep.
And they're all over, but I'm wondering, does these companies, I mean, I'm sure McDonald's paid to have those charging stations installed. Is there a big difference in price between McDonald's or a charging station somewhere else?
My guess is that some of the apps that they mentioned would talk about that, just like a filling station. I mean, it is a filling station, right?
But it's
the
not,
exact same thing.
it's not posted, I guess. So you go by a gas station, you say
Yeah,
this
it's
is,
gonna be probably on the app.
okay.
Yep.
And some of the companies are doing it to bring you into the store. I don't know if McDonald's is, they don't even.
Right,
charge
they
you.
might subsidize those charging stations to get you to sit there for 20 minutes and come in and grab a cup of coffee. One more quick one.
Okay, my question is, winter driving. You talked about regenerative braking versus coasting, and we talked about the acceleration versus
On
regular.
slipperiness.
Yeah, exactly. How do those things change, if at all? Are they positive, negative? Those things seem to me they would make you be a little different.
Have good tires, just like you would on any car. The regenerative braking doesn't really, it isn't quite like popping a clutch and going into 180s or 360s.
You've done it all.
It really is a controlled thing, and you do have a lower center of gravity. I have found that in snow and ice, the car runs great and I always have good tires.
My car has a setting where you can dial up or down the regenerative braking, so I generally have mine set so that I don't experience the regenerative braking, because I don't need the benefit of that extra charge while I'm driving, because, to your point, I don't go anywhere. Right, like, let's call it what it is. So for me, like, depending upon the car, I think you can have your experience.
Any other comment on that, Brian?
Well, mine's an all-wheel drive, and one of the reasons I selected a Subaru is because I've always had all-wheel drive, and for our climate, I find it works very well, and it drives very well in the winter. I think the lower center of gravity, the additional weight, and to Bill's point, good tires, it performs very well on snow and ice.
Bill will be giving driving demonstrations after we're done here. So we're going to have Robin and Jessica go through the programs quickly and talk about Choose EV. I really want you to see that, because for those who haven't gotten one, it's going to be a big help. And then we're going to do a drawing, and then we're going to go down to the showcase, because the cars are just spectacular. So I'm going to turn it over to Robin and Jessica. I wish.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Robin, and I have been here at Wright-Hennepin for about 25 years and been heavily involved in our energy saving programs and a lot helping develop our EV program. So we're always trying to learn, trying to understand what the needs are and see what technology is available to help us to deliver good, reliable, and economical cost for charging your vehicles. So I'm going to go over our programs pretty high level, but we have Josh and Elena that will be back in our in the bay for the EV showcase, and they'll be able to answer any questions that you have. So let's see if I can get this to go.
Go down to the bottom left of the screen. And you should see the arrow down at the very bottom left.
Okay, So right now, currently, we have 3 programs that are available. Our first program is kind of our beginning program. It was what we started out with. We didn't know much about things. We offered an overnight storage, and I believe Bill was on that program. Overnight storage, it has a fixed rate. It means that you can charge your vehicle from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. No other times are available. So the rate for that is 6.4 cents per kWh. And the next program, as we developed and learned, we rolled into what is called a time of use program. Time of use program has more flexibility. It allows you to charge any time during the day, but there are 3 tiers to this program. 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. is that 12 cent, almost 13-cent rate. And all of our programs, I'll go back just a minute, none of them have the PCA or power cost adjustment. So you're all our members, you've seen your bill, there's a power cost adjustment. These programs, that does not apply to your usage there. So back to the time of use program, the most expensive time is 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. We call that our on peak. That's when energy costs the most. And so we're charging what it costs us as your utility to provide that energy during that time. So that's at about 30 cents a kWh. The most inexpensive is from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. and that's that 6.4 cent rate. So we kind of developed a bit of a hybrid based on what we learned with the overnight storage program. And then we also have a subscription program. Some people are interested in, it's only going to cost me $35 to charge my vehicle. You can charge any time in that overnight period for that $35. That again is that 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. The backbone to this program is that time of use. So if you did need to charge during the day, you can certainly do that, but you would have to pay the regular rate for that. There are rebates available for all 3 of these programs at $500, up to $500. And then just some information on the rebates. So a couple details I thought kind of high level. To qualify for rebate, it has to be a new hardwired 240 volt wall mounted level 2 charging station. That's a lot to say. You have to be on a program. It has to be all electric or a BEV, battery electric vehicle. It has to be a minimum of 4.5 kW charging rate to qualify to be on a program. And then the rebate is applied to your electric bill as a credit. Just to give you some flavor for what the cooperative has done and the members participating in programs. So the storage charge program has about 217 members. The time of use has 630. As you can see, that has been heavily adopted. In our subscription program, we have 26 participants in that for a total of 873. This was at the end of October, and we see it going up about 20 new participants each month is kind of the average. So we kind of touched base on this in the trivia. So in Minnesota, we get information from the DMV that lets us know how many vehicles were registered in our territory. So we kind of get a feel for what's out there. We don't get any particular information like who bought the car. It's just that it was a PHEV or a BEV in our service territory. So we had a total of 1,366 at the end of 2023. So it's kind of a year late, if you will. And at the end of 2023, we had 618 participants. So that's where we come up with that 45% of all EV owners, BEV owners in our territory that are on a program. And then just to let you know, as members of the co-op, we do have other energy saving programs. We offer home cooling, electric home heating, electric water heating, and ground source heat pump programs. And then we also have a referral. So if you join a program and you have a neighbor that's interested, if you share the information with them, you would get a $10 credit on your electric bill for that. So Jessica is gonna give some information on our tool.
Hi, I'm Jessica Barnes. I'm the Senior Communications Specialist for Wright-Hennepin. I'm here to introduce you to our new tool, the EV Savings Calculator. In your bag, you'll find a card that looks like this. And you can use the QR code or this URL to navigate to it. I was going to have.
It's challenging, isn't it? to find that one here?
It was linked. We're just gonna navigate there together. Little change to the PowerPoint that I was not aware of, apologize. So I'm gonna show you how to navigate to it from our website. You just go to whe.org, and once this loads, doesn't load. Extra dot, of course, all right. Okay, here we go. Under quick links, you're gonna see the EV savings calculator. I'm gonna click on that. And I'm just gonna show you kind of what each of these calculators and information tabs that we have.
We'll have it set up in the back too, if you have one question.
I'll just go through these tabs at the top. So first, we're gonna go to View EV Models. Actually, I should first explain what this tool is. It will help you compare EV models, estimate savings and charge time, learn about our programs, explore tax credits and incentives, and just find some charging stations, public charging stations. So first, we're gonna look at how you can compare different EV models that are on the market. This is updated weekly by a third party. You can go in and configure your vehicle, select your manufacturer, year, range, and that sort of thing. And then you get all of the information. All of the range is populated from data from the EPA and federal testing. Under EVs, calculate your estimated savings potential. Here you can compare what an electric vehicle costs versus what a gasoline vehicle costs per month. You can customize the number of miles you drive per day, the amount of fuel cost per gallon. This is also updated regularly, but if in your community you see a different price, you can definitely change that number. And then the most exciting part for Wright-Hennepin is down here. You can select how much money you're gonna save from each of our programs. And the overnight storage program, watch this blue bar, will save you quite a bit of money. One of the programs Robin talked about is our time of use rate program. This is that one where you can choose which part of the day you charge. And this particular one will show you how much your bill approximately will be per month. You can customize the number of miles you drive per day, the vehicle you drive, your charging equipment, and your charge time. You can also use the slider. So you can see the amount it costs to charge overnight versus that peak. It's a considerable difference. Tax credits and incentives is just what you would think it is. It's the federal government and Minnesota tax incentives. And this is, again, all updated really regularly by our third party. I know you guys talked a lot about different tools you had to find charging stations. This is just another option if you're don't have the vehicle yet and you want to see what's in your area. You can filter by the type of charger you think you might have, which is also really nice. You can exclude the rest of them and just find level 2 chargers. Finally, there's just a bunch of EV facts, a little bit of information about the different types of electric vehicles, different types of chargers, weather impacts on range, EV battery information, and more. Again, like she said, Josh and Elena will have this tool up ready to look at the warehouse after we are done.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. I want to say a big thanks to our panelists, Kelly, Bill, and Brian, and Rodney, and Andy. And then I also want to, James is going to do our drawing in a second, but I also want to say thank you so much. I am so pleased that Steve Nisbet is in the back of the room. So if you have questions about the direction of the way the dealership relationship is going. So Steve is the head of the Minnesota Automobile Dealers Association. And so we are very, very fortunate to partner with him on our programs. And he is such a great ambassador to the dealers. We're so grateful to, give me just a second. I'll get to you. Audi of Minneapolis, BMW of Minnetonka, Cornerstone Kia of Elk River, Country Chevrolet from Annandale, Porsche of Minneapolis, and Tesla of Golden Valley. And we have Audis, BMWs, Chevys, Fords, Hyundais, Kias, Nissan, Porsche, Subaru, Tesla, and Volkswagen back in the room. Don't go anywhere because we're going to do the drawing quick. Sir?
Yeah, so we have a Kia EV6. We've had it for a few months. I guess I would like you to enroll me on one of your programs. Right now, we're charging probably once a week.
Okay.
We have over 300 miles per charge. So my question is, why not? Right now, we're charging from 10 to 5 in the morning. Why would I need one of your programs? Is that better to use that, or just keep doing what we're doing?
I can answer that.
Yep.
So the reason why you would go on a program is so that you could get a lower rate for that charging. There's no way for us to capture your usage when you're charging without a program. That's what that additional meter does. Captures that usage. It's a sub meter, then we can give you that lower rate for charging in that overnight time.
Okay, so what I saw was that between from 10 to 5, it's what, 0.064, whatever?
It's about 50%.
But is that in the program or just normal?
In the program. It has to be in the program. You have to be on the program.
Yep. And so Robin and Elena and Stephen, those folks are all going to be back in the warehouse to answer questions, to walk you through the Choose EV tool. The dealers are back there as well. These folks are going to be back there. Rodney and Andy are going to be back there. And always give us a call or stop in. We would love it when you come in. So we want to be here to be your partner. So number one, you can do it safely. You can save money, but more importantly, we can all save money as members because we're a cooperative. We're not an investor-owned utility. We are a cooperative. So if we move the charging off the peak, which is what we're built on, we are going to keep the rates low. All right, James, put this event together. Thank you, James, so much for this.
Thank you very much, Martha, panelists, and obviously members. Thank you. Fantastic to have you here.